The solid drills you're going to need for today, we need to be able to lateral pendulum. So when we do this, a common mistake a lot of people make is they'll leave their hands out like this, and as they go side to side, you see how my shoulders are facing this way, hips are facing this direction. Instead, we want to go here. So as I turn, my legs are coming down, and I use this to turn my whole body to the other side. Now, when we get to this position, this hollow position, we want to be pressing our lower back into the floor. Try not to arch. You can definitely hurt your lower back doing this. And we go from here, rock, to the other side. Okay, so you need to be able to do that. We need to be able to vertical pendulum and use this to get up to a prop elbow. So very similar to our Turkish get up. You can either use two legs, okay, or a single leg. All the time you come up straight to a hand. The other body movement you're going to need are hip escapes. So I can post both feet on the floor, lifting my hips back, hips forward. I can post the outside leg, or I can post the inside leg. So those are the three you're going to need for today. We're now going to look at escaping north-south. North-south and side control are connected. You want to think of them as dynamic pins. So you don't get points for side control or north-south. If you did, you would just rack up an insane amount of points being able to go back and forth between them. Now you can go to north-south proactively or reactively from side control. So example of reactively, let's say I'm here and he starts getting his knee in and hip escaping and he gets to here. If I stay here, he's going to move his head away. He's going to be able to get his legs back in. From here, as soon as his knee gets in, I can start to go over the top to pin his head down. And now as he goes to try and square up, it makes it difficult. Then I have to change my wedges and my hand can block his near hip, right at the pocket of the hip here. Then my shoulder can move down and I can start moving around towards north-south. So that would be reactive, right? I'm reacting to his escape. Proactively, I could go there because let's say he's really, really good at keeping all this inside position here, and I just feel like I can't start getting any kind of inside. Okay, if I want to advance, I have to start getting inside of this elbow, inside of this elbow. All right, I'll start pinning them to the floor or bring them towards the center line. So if I just can't get any kind of inside position, I can go around, move to this reverse crossface, move my hand to block his near hip, my shoulder can come down, and I can move towards north-south. There's an intermediary position between side control and north-south, referred to as a high tripod north-south, where my shoulder is on his belly button, my hand is blocking his near hip, and my head is on the other side. Now, this would then lead to a true north-south where I step over his head, and once we get to here, we're looking to fight for that inside position. So there are three scenarios when we get here. I could have my elbows inside of his. This is me having all the inside position. This is great for me. We could have one each, or I've got one elbow inside his armpit, and he's got one elbow inside my shoulder line, or we could have it where he's got all the inside position. This is obviously much better for him. Not the end of the world for me, but it's going to be easier for him to escape if he gets that inside position. When we start changing the style of pin, much like when we've gone through, so we've covered squared side control, dropped hip, reverse side sit out, regular side sit out, unlocked hands, right? Each one of those, you had to change the way you were going to escape. The same thing applies for north-south, right? If Sean's here, he's framing this way, and I start changing north-south, and he keeps framing this way. So if he were still framing on my shoulder line here, as I start moving around, his arm is now caught out of position, and we could use this to start attacking things like kimuras and catching him out of position. When the pin changes, his stance and how he frames needs to change too. How do you frame in a high tripod north-south? First of all, you'll notice he's going to move to a high tripod north-south by either blocking my near hip first, then taking this over my head, or he'll do vice versa. Okay, he'll bring this over first, then go to block the near hip. And his shoulder will transfer down to my belly button, okay, and he'll start to tripod up. We want to refer to side control as when this is his hip line, this is his shoulder line. My head is on one side, my hips are on the other, but they're between his shoulder line and his hip line. North-south is any situation where my hips go above his shoulder line, but my head's still below. That's how we can kind of define it. So as he changes to that north-south, I want to keep him in the orientation of side control. So we do this by making sure he doesn't step over my head. As we get to here, I need to make sure he doesn't step over my head. The way we're going to frame, we have a thumb post in here, with elbow tight, and we're holding onto his knee here. Now, if I stay flat on my shoulders, what's going to happen is he's going to end up stepping over my head. Okay, as soon as he steps over, and if I continue with this frame, right, and he steps over, from here, he drops his knees to the floor, right? From here, I can end up stuck in a triangle. Okay, if we go back, if I'm flat on my back as well, he can end up, especially if I end up getting overextended, if he drops his weight, like back and down, from here, my elbows can end up getting kind of smashed to the side. So we need to make sure we're framing in the correct way, because what we don't want is to get our arms smashed to the side or arms smashed up here, right? So it's my arms versus his legs. His legs are a lot stronger. The main problem is I'm flat, so I have to get onto my side. Now, his shoulder in its current position is a physical block on my hip. So if I go to turn, if I go to like turn in to face him, my hip runs into his shoulder. So that's if I try and use a drive leg and turn. If I try to hip escape, he'll just follow me and keep me flat, and then eventually step over my head and crush me. So we can't allow this to happen. What we have to do is a lateral pendulum. It works like magic. I originally saw Craig Jones do this, and it's such a great way to solve this problem. Even if he doesn't want me to, like he can put all of his weight into that shoulder. The cool part about this lateral pendulum, you're getting a lot of weight and a lot of momentum behind turning. As my left hip turns, my right hip can kind of go underneath, and it ends up being like almost like a hip escape. So from here, I use this lateral pendulum, and I can move my head away, and from here, I can end up getting onto my side. Sometimes he'll drop down to a knee. Sometimes he'll stay up. Like our next move depends on what he does from there. So I use this lateral pendulum, and I get to here. If he's on his knees, we're going to do one thing. If he drives his shoulder back into my hip, we're going to do another thing. Or if he's trying to step over my head, that's going to be another reaction. So there are 3 possible reactions he has here, and that is going to determine what we're going to do next. As we get to here and we're on our side, we're framing in the hip here, and we're cupping his knee. So we cup the knee because if he goes to step over my head, right, go step over my head, see how I've got a little bit of time. Okay, while you're here, you've got a little bit of time. See how my legs are straight and they're staying here like this. Be careful bringing your feet back towards the floor. You can do like a small hip escape and whatnot, but if I bring my feet too long to the floor and he goes to step over my head, right, sometimes he'll end up being able to get back over my head, right? So you kind of keep your legs here like this. So as he goes to step over, I can just keep staying here and moving my head away. So it buys me 5 to 10 seconds to kind of determine what my next move is. Our first reaction here, so he's up on his toes and he's not going to step over my head, but he's driving his shoulder, trying to drive me flat again. As we get to here, you'll feel a lot of pressure of the shoulder on the hip. So what we're going to do, we know there's no base in this direction. So there's 2 ways you can do this. I can bring my knee. My preference is to bring my knee up, my right knee up. This traps his right arm. So from here, I can then use a pendulum in this direction where he doesn't have any base. So I'm on my side, my right knee's up. So I use a pendulum and I start getting up to my elbow. So my right knee caught his hand and stops him from being able to post out. He was driving in that direction anyway, so it makes it easy to start taking him up and over. From here, my right hand can either scoop underneath both legs, could scoop the near leg, right? And I swivel my leg out of the way. And from here, I then take north-south on him. This is extremely embarrassing to have happen to you. So that's one way you could do it, with my right knee blocking his arm. So I get into your side first, right knee blocks, and I use this left leg to pendulum, take him up and over. That's great to reverse him. Sometimes you're against someone much bigger than you. You might have to use a double leg pendulum. So from here, I use both legs, and I use this to rock up and take him over. The problem when I use both legs is that I'm not trapping this arm. So there's potential for him to be able to take it out. So as I go to take him this way, he posts his hand out. Okay? And from here, if you end up in a situation like this, what we have to do is bring your heels to your butt, scoot back, and from here, get your knees, or at least this knee, to his near hip. Okay, there's also potential to start heisting and moving around towards the back. It's not the ideal. You want to be able to reverse him. So I generally favor, I use this knee to block and this leg to pendulum in that direction. Okay, so I'm framing here, and I'm going to use the pendulum to go this direction. Okay, you could also use two legs, but now you're not blocking his arm. Sometimes you'll still reverse him. Sometimes he'll post out. If he does post out, you just need to scoot your hips away, get your legs out from underneath him. The cue to do this is his shoulder is driving hard into your hip. And you feel like he's trying to flatten you back out. That's the time to do this. Now, as to which reaction is the most common, good people are going to try and step over your head. If that is most of the time, that's what's going to happen. I would say 20% of the time, they'll try and drive you flat. Maybe 10 to 15% of the time, they'll drop to their knees. And then the rest, right, they'll be looking to step over your head. And we'll cover that next week. So this week, we're covering what do you do if they're trying to drive into you and flatten you back out? What do you do if they drop to their knees and there's weight off you? That position of getting onto your side with those frames gives you time to figure out which one of those three they're doing. And you want to make sure you know which one of the three they're doing and then match the escape to their reaction. You can't force the one you want. That get up and reversal will not work if they're trying to step over your head. It will not work if they're sat back and on their knees. It only works if they're driving their weight forward onto you and into your hip. I mentioned there are three reactions he can have once I get onto my side. So he's got his shoulder on my hip. We got to here. When I get to here, I want my legs off the floor the whole time. As soon as my legs hit the floor, it's going to be easier for him to flatten me back out. But by keeping my legs here, you see how from here I get a little bit of time. Okay, you see how he's trying to hop and step over my head. It gives you time to be able to see what he's going to try and do. The three reactions he has. The first one we covered, he's driving his shoulder into my hip and trying to flatten me back out. He might even use this hand to try and lift my legs, to try and turn and flatten me back out. That is your cue to hit that get up. This next one isn't super common. When we use the pendulum, he might do this and drop to this knee. If he drops to this knee, his weight is off of me. The most likely time this is going to happen is as I use my pendulum and he ends up here. Anytime that his knee hits the floor, I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to put a thumb post in his elbow on the far side. From here, I bring my heels to my butt and I'm going to do a big hip escape back so I can get my knee inside. From here, my arm's going to go over the top and our heel's going to come towards here. And I'm going to do another hip escape to turn. From here, I'm going to grab my shin and look to turn again. So from here, we can lock up a really tight triangle. Now, this triangle is extremely tight because his arm is caught across his center line. We want to grab our shin, and from here, we lock up the triangle. Now, a few tips to make the triangle nice and tight. We want to pull our toes back like this. I want my two lower legs pointed the same direction. So as I turn them the same direction, then, sorry, there's two different finish mechanics once we do that. I can either draw my knees in towards my chest to get the finish, or I can stomp my feet down towards the floor to get the finish. So you got two different finish mechanics that you can use. I prefer the stomping method, but you can also use the knee pull method. Okay, so I'm flat and I use the pendulum, and we might end up being able to push him back to get his knees on the floor. He won't voluntarily do this a lot of the time, but as soon as his knee hits the floor, my hand comes off and I put a thumb post here. We do a big hip escape and I get my knee to this rib here. This leg comes over the top and we have to do another hip escape. We move our head this direction so our head's in line with his. Grab your shin, we lock up the triangle, right? Toes pulled back. We want both of our lower legs pointed the same direction, and either draw your knees in or stomp your feet towards the floor, right? And I mentioned there were three reactions. This is the one we're going to go over next week, right? It's him trying to step over my head. You can't use either of the previous escapes if he's trying to step over your head. We're going to cover that next week. For this week, it's when he's driving his shoulder into your far hip, trying to flatten you out. That's when you use that pendulum get up. Or you've off-balanced him and he's dropped his knees to the floor and his weight is off you. That's when you'd put that frame in the elbow pit, do a hip escape, get your knee on the inside, and then you can go straight into a triangle.